The night he thought would finally break him arrived quietly, wrapped in rain and neon reflections on cracked pavement, the kind of night that makes a man question how much more weight his heart can carry before it gives in. Daniel Carter had just finished another double shift, his back aching, his hands smelling of oil and cheap soap, his mind already racing toward the small apartment where his daughter waited with homework spread across a chipped kitchen table. He did not know yet that before dawn, a single choice would pull him out of the shadows he had lived in for years, or that the woman who signed his paychecks would soon be lying helpless in the back seat of his rusted car, her future balanced on his exhausted shoulders. Before the story pulls you deeper into that night and everything it changed, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, subscribe to the channel for more real and emotional stories, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from if you believe that doing the right thing still matters in this world. Daniel was a single father long before he was ready to be one. Life had not asked his permission when it took his wife in a sudden accident, leaving him with a 4-year-old girl named Lily and a grief so heavy it felt physical. Every day since had been a quiet act of survival. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at a mid-sized marketing firm, a job that paid just enough to keep the lights on and food in the fridge, but never enough to stop the fear that one unexpected bill could send everything collapsing. His boss, Rebecca Whitmore, was known in the office as sharp, demanding, and distant. She walked through hallways like someone who had learned early that vulnerability was dangerous, her tailored suits and clipped emails building walls no one dared cross. To Daniel, she was simply the reason his paycheck cleared, a powerful presence he respected but never imagined truly knowing. That night, rain poured like the sky itself was breaking apart. Daniel was halfway home when he noticed a familiar luxury car swerving near the curb outside a downtown bar. He recognized it instantly, the kind of car that did not belong in his world, the kind that carried Rebecca Whitmore's name and status. He slowed, unsure why his chest tightened, and then he saw her. She stumbled as she tried to stand, her balance gone, her phone slipping from her hand, her carefully built image unraveling in seconds. A police cruiser rolled slowly at the end of the street, headlights cutting through the rain like a warning. Daniel could have driven on. No one would have blamed him. He had Lily waiting, rent due, a life already stretched thin. But something inside him refused to turn away. He parked, ran to her side, and helped her into his car just as the cruiser turned the corner. Rebecca was barely conscious, the smell of alcohol heavy, her head falling forward as if the weight of the world had finally caught up with her. Daniel drove with his heart pounding, every red light feeling like a threat, every mile a risk. He took her to her apartment, helped her inside, made sure she was safe, and left without expecting thanks or recognition. He did not leave a note. He did not tell anyone. He went home soaked and shaking, kissed Lily's forehead as she slept, and lay awake until morning wondering if he had just risked everything for someone who would never even know. The next day at work, Daniel expected nothing. He expected the usual silence, the usual invisible existence. He kept his head down, fixed what needed fixing, answered emails politely, and tried to ignore the pounding in his chest every time he passed Rebecca's office. But something was different. The air felt charged, as if a secret hovered between them. When she finally walked in, her face was pale, her eyes tired, but there was an awareness there that had never been before. She looked at Daniel not as a name on a maintenance request, but as a man. Rebecca did not pretend to forget that night. She did not brush it aside as an embarrassing blur. She remembered waking up safe instead of in a jail cell, remembered the quiet dignity of the man who had carried her through the rain without judgment. For years, she had believed that power meant control, that success required distance, that people were tools or obstacles. But the truth hit her hard. The person who had saved her reputation, her freedom, and perhaps her entire career was the one person in the building who asked for nothing and received the least. In the weeks that followed, small changes began to ripple through Daniel's life. His overtime requests were approved without question. Broken equipment that had been ignored for years was replaced. His ideas, once dismissed, were suddenly heard. Rebecca began to notice the details of his life, the way he left early twice a week for Lily's school activities, the way exhaustion lived in his posture. And as she watched him, she saw herself reflected in a way that was uncomfortable and honest. She saw what it looked like to carry responsibility without privilege, to love without safety nets, to show up even when the world offered no applause. Daniel struggled with the attention at first. It made him uneasy, like standing in a spotlight he had never asked for. He feared expectations, feared strings attached, feared that kindness from someone powerful always came with a price. His life had taught him to be careful. But slowly, trust grew, not through grand gestures, but through consistency. Rebecca did not demand gratitude. She did not bring up that night. She simply showed up differently. As months passed, Daniel's world began to shift. He was offered training opportunities he had never been considered for. His salary increased enough that he could finally breathe without counting every dollar. He moved Lily into a better school district, watching her confidence bloom in ways that filled him with quiet pride. And still, the most profound change was internal. For the first time since his wife's death, Daniel allowed himself to believe that good things could happen without being immediately taken away. Rebecca, too, was changing. She cut back on the late nights and empty celebrations. She started therapy, confronted the loneliness she had drowned in alcohol, and learned to sit with her own vulnerability. The more she healed, the more she understood the depth of what Daniel had given her that night. He had not just saved her from trouble, he had reminded her of her humanity. The true test came when the company faced a major crisis. A merger threatened layoffs, and fear spread through the building like wildfire. Daniel watched coworkers panic, families hanging in the balance, memories of his own worst days rushing back. Rebecca stood at a crossroads, pressured by investors to cut costs quickly and brutally. It would have been easy to protect herself and let others fall. But she remembered the rain, the quiet car ride, the man who chose compassion over convenience. She fought. She restructured, negotiated, and took personal financial hits to save as many jobs as possible. Daniel saw the strain in her eyes, the weight she carried now with intention instead of arrogance. When the dust settled, many families were spared, including his own. And in that moment, Daniel understood that kindness does not disappear into the void. It echoes, returns, and reshapes lives in ways no one can predict. Near the end of this story, if it has touched your heart, if you believe that empathy can change destinies and that one good choice can rewrite a future, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to support stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Daniel never told Lily about that night in detail. He simply taught her, through example, that helping someone does not require permission or reward. Rebecca never publicly acknowledged what he had done, but she carried it with her in every decision she made afterward. Their lives remained separate yet forever connected by a moment when one broken person chose to lift another without knowing the cost. Please comment below what this story made you feel and whether you believe one act of kindness can truly change a life. Years later, on a quiet evening, Daniel watched Lily fall asleep over her books, her future wide and unwritten. Outside, the city hummed, indifferent and relentless. But inside that small apartment, hope lived, steady and real. And somewhere across town, Rebecca Whitmore looked out over the same city, sober, grounded, and grateful, knowing that she had been given a second chance not because she deserved it, but because someone believed that saving another human being was worth everything.